Hi and welcome to challenge number 8, remove character. The aim of this challenge is to remove all occurrences of a specific character from an input string. So how does that work? For example, if we have this banana right here and the character is A, and if we remove all three A's from banana, we are going to get BNN. That's the challenge. So if there is any given character, you need to remove all instances of that character from that input string. Very good. Let's jump into the first language in which we are going to solve this. So for this language, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function and I'm going to call this remove character. Now, this function is going to accept two things. It's going to accept a string and it is going to accept a char or a character. Now, there are 2 or 3 edge cases that I want to handle. The first one is, what if our input string is empty? If the input string is empty, we just want to return an empty string. We don't want to do anything. So that's the first edge case. But what if our character is empty? Then we just return an empty string as well. But then there is one more situation in which we check if our character that we want to remove from our string, if that has more than one character. So for example, it's 2 characters or 3 characters, we're just going to select the first one. So I'm going to say if char.length is greater than 1 or higher than 1, then what does that mean? It means there is more than one character there. And then we are going to set char to the first character and we select that using the index 0. Now that we have handled these edge cases, let me just put that there as well. Let's move forward. Now, the way that we can solve this in JavaScript is we can use methods, some JavaScript intrinsic methods, and these methods are going to help us accomplish this. So we have this split method, and we can add our character split method, and we can add our character in there. So what the split method is going to do is it's going to select a string, which is our input string, and it is going to split it into an array of substrings. But how does this splitting work? The splitting happens at the character that we have specified. So at this character. And once it splits our string and it converts it into an array of substrings, it gets rid of this character that we have provided. So in the process of in the process of splitting the string, it is going to get rid of all occurrences of this character for us automatically. And then what it gives us is an array. Now, do we want an array? No, we want to return a string. So we need to use the join method, which is going to convert the elements of an array into a string. And what do we want to join it at? We are going to join it at an empty string. Why an empty string? Because we don't want to have any separator in there. So that's going to be it. And let's go ahead and let's return this from the function. And there are going to be a few test cases that I'm going to add here. So the first one is going to be, our input string is going to be banana. And the first one is going to be A. Our result should be B and N. Let's save this. Let's run this node A tab. And there we go. Oh, I just logged it. I didn't pass this to the function. Sorry for that. Let's grab our remove character and then pass that to the function. I was like, what is happening here? And now if I run this again, we get B and N. Very good. So that's the first case. The second case is, what if our input string is empty? If our input string is empty, we said, okay, we just want to return an empty string. So if I run this again, you can see we have an empty string here. Very good. The third case, we do have an input string. but our character is empty. In this scenario, we just return our input string. I should fix this. We return our input string because there is no character to remove from it. Let's run this, and there we go. We get banana. Very good. What if the character is longer than one word? What happens in that scenario? We have already specified that we're just going to select the first character. So if I just pass in banana, we can see the character that we want all occurrences of which to be removed from our input string. It indeed has more than one character. And then if I run this, we are just going to get, let me just pass in anana. That's what we should get. So it is going to select the first character, and then it's going to get rid of all the other characters, just ignore all of them, and it's going to remove the first occurrence of B, or basically all occurrences of B from banana. Cool. Let me run this here. Node run, and there we go. We got banana. And let's use a different string. I could pass in hello world. And then let's say I want to remove the L word from here. And what should we get? We should get heyo word. That's what we should get. Let me run this. And there we go. And finally, what if we have something like this? We have A, and in here, we have a bunch of A's. So do we remove all instances of all A's from here? What happens here? What do you think happens here? Well, all instances of A are going to be removed, and this is going to become an empty string. Let's run this. There we go. We have an empty string. So this is going to be our result. And the reason that I've done all of this is so we can use all of this for other languages as well. Now that the solution for JavaScript is done, let's jump into the TypeScript one. And as usual, we are going to try to implement this manually. So let's create our very first function. Now, what do I mean by manually? Here, we use the split method, and then we use the join method. And these methods, they basically abstracted away the complication of how everything works. So the split method, it not only splitted the string at that given character, but it also got rid of all occurrences of that character for us. Now, what I try to do in the TypeScript solution is I try to peel back all of these layers and show you how all of this works behind the scenes or under the hood. So our function is going to be called remove character. Let me just select all of this, and I'm going to close this. Let me put all the console logs here. Very good. So we have our remove character. This function is going to accept a string, which is going to have a type of string, and it is going to accept a character, which is going to have a type of string. But then this is going to return a string for us as well. Very good. Now, we're going to handle all three edge cases for this one as well. If string doesn't exist, we return an empty string. If character doesn't exist, we return string. But if our character is larger or longer, if our character dot length is longer than 1, then what do we do here? We basically return the first index of the first letter of that character. So here it's going to be character, and we select it using the 0 index. So now that this works and we completed that, let's move on and let's see how the split method and the join method, they work. Now, I am going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it result. And the job of this variable is to keep holding on to our latest result. Now, since I want to do this manually, I am going to have some sort of a string. And the string could be banana, it could be anything you can think of. Now, since I have a string and it does have some characters inside of it, I need to take a look at each individual character. And then I need to check that or compare it to my char. So I need to take a look at each individual letter inside banana and then compare that to my character, which is A. And then if they are the same, I am going to get rid of that. But if they are different, for example, the first character in banana, let me just show it to you like this. The first character is B in banana, but our target character is A. So B and A are different, right? And that in that scenario, I'm going to keep B and then I'm going to move on to the next character, A. And so the next letter is A. A and A are the same, and then I'm going to get rid of A. So if the characters in my input string and in character are the same, I'm going to get rid of that because we want to remove all occurrences of that, remember? But we are only going to keep them if they are different. That's the point. So how do we implement that? Well, if we want to take a look at something like individually, but do it programmatically, then we are going to use our for loop. What I mean is, I want to take a look at one individual thing, implement some logic, and then I want that logic to be repeated several times. So what is what should we use in here? Well, we are going to use a for loop because we want to go manual. Now, the I is going to stand for index, and the indices in JavaScript, they start from 0. That's why the initial value of that is 0. And then I is going to go for as long as the less than the length of our string, not input, our string.length. And I'm going to explain why less than that. The reason for that is, let me just add a comment here, is indices start from 0. So when I is equal to 0, that's the first letter of banana. So banana has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 letters. So the length of banana is 6. When I is 0 less than 6? Yes, it is less than 6. So our loop is going to run. I could say loop runs. And then in the next iteration, the I value, since we incremented that by 1, it's going to go to 1. And is 1 less than 6? Yes. And then the loop runs. And it moves on like this. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me just fix this as well. 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So up until 5, the loop is going to run. But then how many iterations have we done so far? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have done 6 iterations, and banana has 6 characters. So we basically targeted each individual character of banana. But what happens next? In the next iteration, the value of I is going to be 6. Is 6 less than 6? No. So here is where the loop is going to stop. That's why we don't want it to go as long as big. We don't want the final iterations index to be the same thing as the length of our character, length of our string. Because in this scenario, we will have iterated over something that doesn't exist. So it's always going to be 1 less than that. And that's why we say I should be less than the length of the string. And what is the latest possible iteration? That's right here, when the index is 5. And if you count from 0, that's the 6th iteration, and we have 6 characters. So I'm going to keep that there, just for reference. And let's move forward. Now, what do I want to do within this for loop? I could go 2 ways. I could say, okay, if the character is the same, then remove it from the result. But the character is not in the result is empty. So there is another way for us. We can check if the character is different, then add it to the result. Don't remove anything. If it is different, then add it, as we talked about. So if our string's individual character How do we get the individual character of a string in the for loop? We pass an I, because I iterates over our string and it selects one individual character from there. If that's different than our character that we have passed, then that means we want to keep it. Remember, if it is the same, we will get rid of it. We'll get rid of all the occurrences of it. If it is different, then we save it. So we're going to select our result and we add on to it that specific character. Let's pass that in. Now, why do we add on? Because in the first iteration, we get the B. Okay, we get B and we add it to result. So in this scenario, results value is going to be B. In the next iteration, we have A. We get rid of A. And then we have N. If I don't pass in this plus sign, N is going to replace B, and the result is now going to be N. The result is going to be N. But when I say plus, I'm going to keep B, and I'm going to add on to it N. And then I'm going to add on to it the other N, and that's how we get B and N. So we keep that. We keep adding on to our result, and finally, from this function, we just want to return our result. Save this, and we should be good to go. Let me run this first. Let's compile it and run that. Oh, that ran the A. I want to run B. So node B tab. Let's run it. There we go. We got the same result. Awesome. So we get B and N. We get the empty string if there is no input. We have banana if there is no character. We get anana if there is more than one character. And then for hello world, we got hello word. And finally, if we have like all A's and we just want to get rid of A, in that scenario, we're not going to end up with anything. So we are going to end up with an empty string. Very good. So this is how the split method works under the hood. It does all of this, and we just say split, and it does it just all under the hood. All right, so that now we are done with the TypeScript solution. Let's jump into the Python solution. For the Python solution, the first thing that I will do is create our function. It's going to be remove underscore character. We are going to have a string and we're going to have a char or character. Now, what do we want to do here? Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say if we don't have any string, then return an empty string. So that's the first edge case. The second edge case is if we do not have our character, what did we return in this scenario? Well, in this scenario, we just returned our string. The third one is, what if the length of our character is longer than 1? Then we select our character and we just trim everything from it and we just select the character at the index 0. So now that all three edge cases have been handled, how do we go about this? Well, we're going to have this join method. This join method in here, I'm going to pass in my string. And on the string, I have access to a method that's called split. And I'm going to pass in the character in there. So the join method is going to join the string after the string has been splitted at the character. So this split method, it does almost the same thing as the split method in JavaScript. It splits our string at the character wherever the character happens, and it gets rid of all the occurrences of that character as well. But then we need to join our string at something that should be there, and we join it at nothing or at empty string, and that's what we are going to return from the function. So now that that is done, let's jump into the JavaScript solution, copy the console logs, come right here, go down. So here, instead of all the console logs, we're going to have print, and instead of remove character, let me select all of that. We're going to have underscore character. And now let's select our forward slashes, convert them to £sign as well. Let's save this. Everything should be fine. C, tab, remove character, and then hit enter. There we go. So we got BNN, nothing, banana, anana, hey, a word, and nothing. Very good. So it's the same thing. We split it at the string, and as we are splitting that, we get rid of all the occurrences of the character as well. But then we need to join it at something, and that something is nothing. And I forgot to mention that whenever we split our string into substrings, the character at which we split our string, that's actually called a delimiter. I wanted to mention that, delimiter. So the delimiter is the character that we use in order to split a string into substrings. So our character is actually delimiter, right? So if you hear that, you know what that is. Let's move forward. We go to our Go solution. For the Go solution, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to import our main package. And after that, I'm going to have my function that is going to handle the logic of removing a character. So it's going to be remove character. What do we pass in here? We're going to have a string that is going to have a type of string. We're going to have a delimiter that's going to have a type of string. And this function is going to return a string for us as well. We're going to have 3 edge cases. So if the length of stir is equal to 0, that means there is no string. We return an empty string. The next one is if the length of character or delimiter is equal to 0, then we return our string. Cool, so far, right? And finally, the last edge case that I could think of is if the length of character, so we have length character is longer than 1, then we just select our delimiter and we are going to select the first instance, or sorry, the first character from our delimiter and using the index 0. So far, everything is perfect. Let's move forward and let's see how we're going to solve this. Well, in Go, we also have the same sort of methods that work almost in the same way as our JavaScript and our Python. In TypeScript, we did have the same, but I wanted to show you how these methods, they work under the hood. So what we can do here is we can select our string, split it. So we have this split method, but this split method is available on the strings package. So here, if I just say S, there we go, that's our split method. And then the split method is going to require our input string as well as the delimiter. And the way the split works is it is going to split the string at each occurrence of our delimiter or our character, and it's going to create a slice of substrings. And then we could use the join method to just convert it back to a string. And I'm going to store this using short variable declaration into a variable that's called parts. And then I'm going to select my strings library again. On there, I have this join method, and the join method, I'm going to pass in the parts. And then what do I want to join it at? Again, an empty string. And this is what I'm going to return from the function. So that's it. The logic is the same. And now let's go ahead and let's create our main entry point for this challenge. And let's just copy paste here. Let's copy all of that, put it right here. Let's get rid of that. So here, I'm going to select all of this. I'm going to say fmt.print print line. Very good. And now we have this remove character function. And now everything should be fine. Let me just select these, just tab them, save them. Yeah, everything should be fine. Go run dtab, hit enter, wait for a couple of seconds, and there we go. So we get BNN, empty string, banana, anana, hey award, and an empty string. It's the same thing. You can see, so these languages, they have all of these methods. Their implementation is a little bit different, and that's language specific, but it's good to know that some the languages, they share some features. And now after this, let's move on to our Rust and final solution. For the Rust solution, we are going to go almost the same way as we went for our Go solution. So we're going to have our remove character function, and this remove character function is going to accept a string. I am going to set the type as a string slice because I don't want it to take ownership. We are going to have our char or character, that's going to be a string slice as well, but then this function is going to return an owned string for us. So how do we go about this? Well, the first thing that we need to do is talk about our edge cases, remember? So we're going to say if our string if our string is empty, and we have this method that's called isEmpty, what do we do in this scenario? Well, if our string is empty, we just want to return an empty string. Now in here, I can't just say this because the type, I did this intentionally because I want you to pay attention to this when you're working with Rust. So in Rust, we said that our input string has a type of a string slice, and our character also has a type of the same thing, string slice. All right, I know all of that, but what does this function return? The function returns an owned string. So if you pay attention, you can see this type is different than these types. So if our if our string or our input string is empty, I can't just return an empty string. I should return an owned string so I don't end up with errors. So I'm going to say, I'm going to grab my string and I'm going to convert it to a string. And this is going to return an owned string for us. All right, let me just copy this down below. But what if our character is empty? Well, if our character is empty, we return our input string. So we just return the same thing. Now, if I've reached the second if statement, that means my string is no longer empty. The str is no longer empty. So I just return the str, but I need to convert it to an owned string as I'm returning that. And finally, what if our delimiter has more than one character? Well, in that scenario, we just select the first character of that. And we're going to grab our delimiter, char, and I'm going to say chars, which is going to create an iterator for our characters inside of our delimiter. And then I am going to select the first character using the next method. And after that, I am going to extract that value and put it inside of my first char using unwrap. All right, so just to go over this one more time, chars is going to create an iterator over the characters of the delimiter. Next is going to select or extract it's basically going to get the first character from that iterator. And then unwrap is going to extract that for us. And it's going to panic if there is, if the C is empty, but that's unlikely because we have already handled that here. So this is not going to panic. This is not going to throw an error. Now that we have handled all three edge cases, let's move forward and let's see how we actually implement the logic. Well, we sort of have the same kind of thing here, but it's going to be very, very language specific. So I'm going to grab my string and I'm going to split it at the first character. Because now remember, we stored the first character inside of this first character. If our delimiter has one character, that's going to be inside of this variable. If it has even more than one character, that's going to be stored here as well. So we no longer deal with char, we deal with first char. And then we use the split method. This is going to split our string at this delimiter. and it's going to take a look at all of the occurrences of that. It's going to get rid of all the occurrences of that for us. And then we are going to collect all substrings. So the way this works is the split is going to split our string at each occurrence of our delimiter. And then we want to join all of the pieces into a single string and return that from the function. The way we join them is we use the collect method, and the collect method is going to convert an iterator into a string. And we need to specify the type. That's why we're going to pass in double colon here. And what do we want to convert this? Which type do we want to convert our string into? We want to convert it into an owned string type. Let me go over this one more time. So here we split our string at this delimiter, and then we collect all of the pieces of the iterator, and we convert it to a string. But what kind of a string do we want? That's where we use these double colons and we say, okay, I want to have an owned string. So this part is only used to type annotate our collect method. What it collects should have this type, all right? But the actual collect method looks like this. This is the actual collect method. Well, not this one, this one. Wait, collect, there we go. So this is collect method. We use double colon and the angle brackets to specify what should the collect method convert that into, right? And then we return this from the function as well. So let's just terminate that statement. Let's create our main function. So main, and for this one, we could take a look at our Go solution, select all of that, come right here, paste it here, just backtrack a little bit. And in here, we no longer have this FMT. And this is going to be lowercase p, but this will be a macro. And what was the function name? It was remove _c. There we go. Let's save everything. And hopefully there shouldn't be any errors. And now I'm going to say Rust C E tab, run this. Oh, we got an error. Oh, it seems like I've forgotten the display specifier. So let me just add that very, very quickly. And in here, I'm just gonna add this. There we go, and a comma. We need this as a placeholder to put whatever this print line prints into. So let me save that. Let's see what else is wrong. We got main function. Oh, I forgot to add the parentheses, sorry. Let's save that. And these errors are very, very handy. There we go. So it just compiled that for us, and let's run it. Remove character. There we go. So we got BNN, empty string, banana, anana, hey, a word, and an empty string. And the logic is the same. It's just the language specific implementation is a little bit different. So here, once we split the character, it is going to give us an iterator. We need to convert that iterator into a string using collect. But then we specify the type of own string because that's what the function returns. That's what we have specified that the function should return. And with this, the solution for Rust has come to an end and we are done here. And that's it for this video. See you in the next challenge.